Hey everyone, today we're watching What's the Point of Hard Games Anyway by Game Maker's Toolkit. Today we're going to be discussing difficulty and things like that. If you're into game dev style topics and content about games and exploring them in a bit more depth, then this is the channel for you. That's kind of like the new direction for this channel. I'm a game developer myself, so I like to have like a little bit of, think I have a little bit of extra insight on stuff like that. And I'm really passionate about learning new things about games, so if you want to follow me on that journey, stick around. Let's go.
My discourse is all about Hollow Knight Silksong, which, don't worry, I won't show any footage beyond Act 1. No spoilers here. But yeah, this is Team Cherry's much anticipated, much hyped sequel to 2017's incredible Hollow Knight. But pretty much the only thing people are talking about with this game is its rather brutal level of difficulty. For context, this is a Metroidvania about winding through an interwoven map looking for upgrades and secret passages. There's nothing too strenuous about that, but along the way, you'll have to go toe-to-toe.
Let me just say, the art style in Hollow Knight's so beautiful.
With a huge cast of terrifying bosses, many of which will put your skills to the test in a punishing war of attrition. Now, the first Hollow Knight was pretty tough at times, but Silksong seems to turn the dial further, with even early and mid-game bosses like the bullying Last Judge at the end of Act 1, requiring dozens of failed attempts as you learn the patterns, safe spots, and phases you must go through in order to
Sounds like a skill issue. I definitely would beat it in one try, if I tried. Absolutely.
win. All of which has left some players feeling dejected and frustrated. Review site VGC gave the game 3 stars out of 5, praising almost every aspect, but trashing it for a level of difficulty that feels demotivating and...
Very interesting how this shows up in reviews, because I feel like that's a whole other conversation, right? Where it's like, should difficulty be reviewed? Like, can you review a game's quality counting the difficulty? You know what I mean? If that's like, if you review Dark Souls bad because it's hard, is that a legitimate review? Like, the perspective of the reviewer is important, right? I guess it is, because you just have to know your reviewer, right? Like, if they're a sweatlord gamer, their opinions will match yours more. Because in the end of the day, reviews aren't objective, I guess, right? I think sometimes we look at it like that a little bit.
And so with all this chatter going on, I thought it might be interesting to talk about the design of difficulty in games through the lens of Silksong, to look at why game designers choose to implement a higher level of challenge, and crucially, how they should go about it. I'm Mark Brown, and this is a GMTK Mini. Okay, so the first question is, why would a game designer choose to make their game hard in the first place? What can you gain by amping up the challenge? Well,
this is okay. We'll wait to see, because I'm curious about my perspective, or maybe I'll do it before. Right now, from what I see, like in my experience, reward from it being difficulty, so you get like a sense of satisfaction of accomplishing something. Creating a proper ebb and flow so there's enough friction. A game without friction can feel very dull, right? It's sort of like a story where it has like highs and lows. Like conflict. Conflict is just interesting, right? If you play a game that's insanely easy, I think the new Pokemon games are an example of this. For people who are like older, like adults playing Pokemon, it's worse because it's so easy. You know what I mean? You're just sleepwalking through the experience, right? Especially in games where it requires some sort of building. Like if you're leveling up Pokemon, what's the point? If there's strong Pokemon, weak Pokemon, if they're all gonna win, it's all meaningless, right? So I feel like that's like another reason for an example.
I think there are 3 main reasons to do it. Number 1 is that the harder a challenge is, the more satisfying it feels to finally overcome it.
That's true. That's what I was saying. And using Dark Souls as an example, I wonder if the third reason is erotic masochism, because I feel like Dark Souls has awakened something in me. Not actually, but like, so like, how do I explain this? When I was playing Dark Souls 1, I had a build that made me very powerful. So like in the second half of the game, I was overpowered and I was walking through the bosses because I had a strong character build. But and so I was having less fun. But it was funny, once I got to the DLC, I remember the Black Dragon just absolutely clapping me. Like I was getting destroyed again, and I realized how degenerate Dark Souls has made me, where I was like, I'm having fun again. I died 20 times to the same boss, and I'm like, this is the stuff. This is the good stuff. And then I realized, like, what the hell is wrong with me? What has Dark Souls done to my brain? I'm like, what kind of gamer am I? This is sick. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not having fun unless I'm getting the absolute shit kicked out of me. It's crazy.
If you breeze through a boss fight the first time you play it, it might barely even register as something that happened. But if you struggle against a boss for an hour, slowly improving your skills, your reflexes and your knowledge with each failed attempt, and then you finally topple that monster, well, that moment of triumph is something you might never forget.
Very true. I mean, I think online shooters, their whole appeal is this, right? To me, I play shooters like Overwatch and stuff because my big motivator was getting good, like growing in rank. And there's a social element too. I think those are the two reasons I would play Overwatch, is like...
That's the idea behind the Dark Souls series. Creator Hidetaka Miyazaki says, I just want as many players as possible to experience the joy that comes from overcoming hardship. And Hollow Knight Silksong certainly plays into this. When I finally beat the last judge, my palms were sweaty, my heart was racing, my eyes were straining from not blinking, and I let out an embarrassing, involuntary noise like "ah" to mark my victory. You don't get that with an easy game. The 100%. Second reason to amp up the difficulty is to tie in with the game's narrative or aesthetic goals. Like, if a game tried to tell you that this kingdom is a place of misery and death, a no-man's zone where hope goes to die, and then you play it and it's full of enemies who die in a single...
I didn't consider narrative. That's so true, right? And especially not even the overall game. Let's say that's not your objective, right? Like you have a happy, fun game, but there's like a big baddie or something, right? It's about feeling and experience making something difficult as well, right? Like to make it scary, to make it strong, right? Interesting. Narrative.
Well, that's going to be pretty dissonant. So if you want to tell a story about suffering and failure, then the gameplay should reflect that. That's how Celeste works. The game is about hero Madeline stubbornly persisting through hardship and setbacks as she climbs a legendarily high mountain. And so the player must also stubbornly persist through hardship and, well, you get the idea. Silksong plays into this too. The game's world, Farloom, is a withered, haunted land. There is death everywhere. Other characters are seen failing on their pilgrimage to the Citadel. Main character Hornet must grow in strength and wisdom to succeed, and so must you. And the final reason for increasing a game's difficulty...
Yes, I was trying to eat Hornet. Don't question me. I looked at my VTuber model, I looked over, and I thought it was funny that they were right there on my shoulder, and I was like, oh. I wish you don't worry about it. Bugs are great protein.
Is to ensure that the player approaches the game in a certain way. Take the game Fury, a game about being patient and observant as you dodge and parry every incoming attack, before exploiting a rare opening to deal some damage. The game is designed as a brutal back-and-forth ballet of defense and offense. But if you could also just run up to the boss, dodge a few simple attacks, and then wail on it until it dies, well, you wouldn't have to do any of that stuff I just said, and the game would be pretty dull.
This is true. So it's like micro difficulty, if that makes sense. It's like, if you want players to get a certain experience, you incentivize certain ways of playing by making them a bit easier or more effective, and you make the things you don't want them to do more difficult to create a certain natural sense of flow, like corralling players in a way for the experience. Interesting. This is actually true if you look at, again, my all-timer, Fallout New Vegas, right? Fallout New Vegas starts you off, it's open world, but they gatekeep you from running straight to the end game content by having difficult monsters in between. So, like, basically, you could go, and I've done it. It's a really fun way to play the game. But it's like there's this barrier to get to the other side where it's more manageable. So they're kind of like corralling you to give you the experience they want, but also giving you the option, right? And like I guess having zones that are really hard as well, like say Fallout 4's like the radiation zone, I forget the name of it right now, like the Deadlands, that's scary. If it was easy to be there, it would lose its like terrifying feeling, right? So like again, this is more back to narrative again, but it's like controlling the player and using it as a way to give them experience. I didn't really think about that as much, but that's really interesting and like super common. Like every game does it probably, whether they're thinking about it or not. They're encouraging behavior with difficulty, right?
So in Furi, difficulty acts like a teacher, punishing you if you play it wrong, rewarding you if you play it right.
That's really smart.
Where easy games let you get away with simple and repetitive strategies, hard games require you to use every mechanic, every system, every tool, and every inch of the level design.
I know.
And Silksong does play into this also. You'll need to learn every boss's patterns, make use of every charm and tool, and understand Hornet's moveset on a deep molecular level. So I think those are the three main reasons to make a game more challenging. To increase the sense of
I think I mentioned one that he didn't, wasn't it?
Satisfaction, to mirror the storyline,
yeah.
And to discourage boring playstyles. All of which turns difficulty into another tool that a game designer can use to create the exact experience they want. But, big but. A tool can't be used carelessly.
It's crazy that he said big but and didn't show the Hollow Knight shopkeeper from Hollow Knight 1. Crazy. Missed opportunity.
Or thoughtlessly. I mean, it's simple to make a game really hard. Just put spikes everywhere and send the player back to the beginning of the whole game every time they fail. That's done, but you've now alienated 90% of players. No. Instead, difficulty is a careful balancing act. We want players to feel challenged, maybe even frustrated, but we also want them to get that moment of catharsis from winning before they go all the way into rage quit. Now, I think if a game feels fair, like you can see how you might learn from your mistakes, you can feel yourself getting better, you blame yourself for slip-ups, and you have ample opportunity to repeat and improve, then the game can keep you in that challenge zone for a long time. And oftentimes, this is where Silksong lands. I spent a long time fighting the last judge, but I was kept going because I could see a path to victory.
Yeah, I think like fairness is a big one for sure. I think it's easy to cash out of a game when you feel like it's out of your skill, like you are not in control. But I know it's not strictly true that you should never do that, because there are games that are crafting an experience that are trying to troll you. And it's not just the Faudian games like Jump King or whatever. Even in normal games, if you're trying to create a certain experience, like maybe you're supposed to have a bad time sometimes.
It's lasting longer and longer, and mistakes were my mistakes. But if the game is bull, then the player is going to dip into frustration and perhaps even rage quit much more quickly. And sadly,
like
Silksong
Mario Kart, as we saw earlier, Mario Kart, the most BS game in the world.
Amount of BS. Things like the long, repetitive journey to the boss fight every time you repeat. Things like unpredictable troll moves. Things like boss encounters that use random patterns.
They're just calling out Dark Souls
right now. Things like how the ammo for your secondary weapons don't regenerate upon.
The long rerun back to the boss fight. Oh my god. Dark Souls 1, running back to like, or just any Dark Souls game with the long respawn. Oh my god.
On death, so you'll have to farm enemies to top up. All of this stuff, this is what pushes players to get mad, to stop playing, to write reviews where you call it sadistic. And that also means it no longer fits one of those design goals from earlier. The first one, where overcoming a tough challenge feels rewarding, because the player either doesn't overcome the challenge at all because they've stopped playing, or they feel a different emotion.
It's ironic that you're playing a game like Elden Ring that does have some of that, where you're literally just getting trolled. Like Dark Souls 1 had a bunch of really long walks, 2 does as well. Yeah, 1 and 2 are particularly brutal that way. Is that a good thing? I don't know, right? It's a thing, and it elicits an emotion. Should they have them? Should they not have them? I prefer without, maybe, or somewhere in the middle. The egregiously long ones are just freaking miserable. But the thing is, if you could just respawn and try again, the consequences, the death, don't exist, right? So it's like I feel like there's a true art form of balancing consequence and punishment of laws versus like not making it feel awful, right? You just hurt me, Daddy from Soft. Yes, that's what I mean to say. Hurt me, Daddy from Soft. Miyazaki, please punch me in the gut. It feels so good the more you punch.
You finally win. Just sheer relief that they'll never have to do that again.
I'm keeping that in the
video. As game designers, we can't think of difficulty as a single monolithic thing that we can add or remove from our game. But instead, it's a broad category that includes a whole catalogue of different tools, each one changing the game and the player's relationship with it in a unique way. But there is another type of tool we can use.
That's what's interesting. I do think BS has a place in game development, just very sparingly.
And that's giving the player an opportunity to change the difficulty in some way, to decide just how hard or easy the game should be. Perhaps the most obvious version of this is to provide difficulty modes or assist options that let you modify the game. And Silksong, like the...
There's a plus side to this too, like, I remember like Halo legendary runs were really fun, right? Like, having a high difficulty also doesn't only detract and it doesn't prevent gatekeeping, it also creates more content, right? Because you beat it on a normal run and then you want to do it harder, right? If you just have one, then you're not going to have the opportunity to go sweat mode, right? Which can almost be a brand new experience in and of itself, depending on how you manage it.
Original Hollow Knight does not include anything like this, which, in some ways, is a shame. Because, well, difficulty is a really subjective thing. What's challenging is different for every player. If you asked me to run a 100-meter dash in, say, less than 12 seconds, that would be really tough, but...
Co-op is so easy to me, it's literally just how I get out of bed. This is my real life. Crawling to the screen.
A plausible challenge to overcome.
So I'm a god
but it would be practically impossible for a young child, and completely laughable for Usain Bolt. Difficulty adjustments let everyone find a place where they feel challenged. And also, there's more to Silksong than just beating bosses. This is also a game about untangling an interconnected web of maps and areas, and a game about understanding the deep lore of its storyline. It would be a shame to deny people of those aspects just because they can't beat the bosses. It reminds me of Tunic. My wife loved playing this game and uncovering its many secrets and riddles, but she simply would not have been able to play it without the accessibility adjustments that let you tone down the difficulty of its crushing Souls-like boss battles. But, with all that being said, Silksong does have one big thing that allows you to adjust the difficulty, and that's being able to explore elsewhere. You see, one of the bosses that pushed me into the frustration zone was this guy, the Savage Beastfly. It's not actually a very difficult fight, he has pretty simple patterns to avoid and exploit, but he also spawns in loads of enemies who just get in the way and drain your health. The overlapping patterns make it almost impossible to predict where will be safe. But instead of deleting the game and cancelling Xbox Game Pass, I decided to just explore somewhere else. And I found new powers, more charms, I increased my maximum health, and when I finally went back to the beast...
This is very interesting. Yeah, okay, that's going to be the subject for this section. Elden Ring does this, right? Where it's like, you can manage difficulty. Souls does this as well. This is what they talk about, is like, there's one difficulty, but you can choose to play as mage, you can choose to do cheese builds if you want easy gameplay, or you can choose to make it harder for yourself. So in a way, Dark Souls has a difficulty setting. It's just not in a menu. It's in how you adapt your playstyle. Like there's benefits to that because you can be more flexible, shared experience, again, satisfaction of accomplishment, cheesing something really hard. The downside I noticed with Dark Souls is like, I want to play a cool play style. Like, there's a lot of cool armors that aren't optimal, for example, Fashion Souls gang. And then there's like weapons that are really cool but just suck and make your life suck. You know what I mean? But I would really like to use it. Like, I would like to use Scythes, but I've found that they're not very good. Cue the comments, like, oh man, get good, Death Sight's amazing, blah, 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 right? but like there are more optimal play methods usually. And so like yeah, I think punishing play styles kind of sucks because like if there's an optimal one that makes it a lot easier, then it's like, but I wanted to do this way and it sucks just because that's how it's balanced, right? So, and I'm not saying that's bad, right? I'm just saying there's always two sides to a coin with games, and so it's not that you can't win, it's more so just using it as a tool again, right? It's like, what experience do you want?
I was able to defeat it a lot more easily. And in many ways, Silksong is totally designed around this idea. The game is full of completely optional bosses, and there are very few times where a boss acts like a complete bottleneck to progressing further into the game.
Oh, apologies to people watching, especially the video edit, but fighting games, difficulty as experience, not necessarily in narrative or necessarily rewarding how you play, but variety. So like different characters being good at certain things and bad at other things, certain styles making things harder, because your comment actually reminded me of that, Banana, which is some things bad early game, good long game. All right, having these types of varieties that actually feel different makes a game feel like it has depth. If everything played the same, it would be boring.
I'll explore this more fully in the inevitable Boss Keys episode on this game, but basically, you can almost always go somewhere else and come back later. Also, Silksong has a mechanic where you lose your cash, your rosary beads, when you die, and you've got to go back to your cocoon corpse to pick them up. It's a mechanic that, in most games that do this, forces you to keep going back to the same area again and again. But it's not as egregious as other games. Like in Hollow Knight 1, you'd have half as much mana until you find your corpse. Not so
that was pretty punishing.
You can also find ways to bank your rosary beads. All things that make it okay to leave your cocoon behind and just go somewhere else. And perhaps you could even point to the way ammo works. Like I said before, ammo doesn't regenerate on death, so you'll need to go and kill some enemies to top up your reserves. This breaks the pattern of going back to the boss over and over again, and may encourage you to just do something else. In all of these ways, and more, Silksong is telling you that the solution is almost never to just keep hitting your head against a brick wall until you get through. Instead, if you get stuck...
But what if you played enough Dark Souls where you get off on smashing your head against a brick wall? Then what?
You should go elsewhere, get more powers. Maybe you'll find a friend who will help you in battle, or that one special item that will make the boss fight easier. Or maybe you just need a break. So, in a nutshell, difficulty is a tool that game designers can use to craft a specific experience. But really, difficulty is a huge set of disparate tools which must be deployed carefully. And finally, it's always worth thinking about how to give players ways to adjust or circumvent the difficulty. Right now, Silksong is still in my sweet spot. It's tough, but I'm surviving. But how about you?
I heard it's really hard.
Let me know in the comments down below. See you soon for a new episode of Game Maker's Toolkit.
This is Clear.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So
this week, the game design.
Love the video. If you guys are into game dev stuff, by the way, check out Games Maker's Toolkit. He has a lot of really interesting stuff. That's why I started following or subscribed to him. But my kind of like thoughts wrapping up on this is game difficulty as a tool is so true. It's infinite possibilities on why you want to do it, whether it's like creating narrative, right? Whether you want to have a satisfying experience as opposed to like a chill one, whether you want to reward play styles, but also like, I think one thing that he didn't mention is variety. If everything it plays the same, feels the same, then it's kind of like lame, right? But if there's like peaks and flows, or like in fighting games, if certain characters are good and have easier times doing things than other things, it differentiates stuff, which is really important. So yeah, it's a tool, but it's just so broad, right? And I think what's a shame about the discourse online, right? And this is something that like is that people, and it's fine, people are gonna have opinions, people are gonna hate things and not like things, that's totally cool, right? I do think it's a bit of a shame that games who make the decision to be difficult, to stand out for their reasons, they have a vision, are like vilified so like viscerally online by some people, right? Like at the end of the day, you're mad, you want to play the game and you don't get to, and that sucks and you're mad about it. That's fine, right? Like that makes sense. But I do think there is like a sort of narrative that if you enjoy these kinds of things or if you defend it, you're like a bad person, you're like egotistical, like you're gatekeeping or something like that. I just don't like that people often don't leave room for games to be what they are, to be their own thing. You know what I mean? You don't have to like it, that's fine. You know what I mean? It's even fine if you're upset and you want to hate post about it, right? But it doesn't mean that people who like these games are arrogant. It doesn't mean that, you know what I mean, these experiences aren't valid or that the developers are bad people. And I do see that a lot. And so that's something that I do want to say is like, let people have their things. You know what I mean? So that's that. That's difficulty in gaming.